Hi, everyone. I know we're a minute till, so I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes, wait for more people to join, then we can get started here. All right, we're about a minute after. Um, I'm just going to get started here with some housekeeping, and then I'll pass it on to Anushka, our presenter today. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really looking forward to this webinar and everyone's questions today. Just to start, this is on recording, so if you need to review the slides or anything, those will be sent out to those who attended today along with this recording. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or we can have a discussion, speak up at the end of the presentation. Besides that, I'll hand over to our presenter and we can get started.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kate. Hi, everyone. My name is Anushka Cholakath, and I will be presenting the Clino 2 technology-focused pilot market study. This market study was launched last year and completed earlier this year. So without further ado, let me get started. So for the agenda, we'll talk about the project objectives, the literature review, the survey and survey results, followed by the conclusion and project recommendations. So the main objective of this market study was to conduct a literature review on waste heat recovery technologies with a carbon capture element. Long story short, there's really only one technology on the market that can do both of these things, and that is the CarbonX technology by Clino 2. We also conducted a series of surveys to help identify potential opportunities for the technology, including ways to utilize the potassium carbonate product. Another objective was to identify potential energy efficiency programs that could include this technology in their measure portfolio. And finally, we also wanted to identify potential customers that could benefit from this. So moving on to the literature review, and just to give a high-level overview of this technology, if you haven't heard of it, the CarbonX technology is defined as a microscale carbon capture unit. And essentially it operates by diverting a portion of the waste carbon emissions from natural gas heating appliances, flue gas emissions. So the figure on the right shows the CarbonX heat recovery process. The technology takes the waste heat from the flue gas and combines it with the heat that is generated from the exothermic carbon capture process. And this reduces the amount of gas needed for the building's energy use. So it's really acting like an economizer here. The unit is also charged with potassium hydroxide, and that compound reacts with the carbon dioxide to create potassium carbonate, also known as pearl ash, and this is permanently sequestered. So this is a batch process. It's fed potassium hydroxide roughly every 2 to 3 weeks, and the pearl ash compound is collected at the end. The product is also highly valuable. It can be sold to multiple industries, and also serves as an ongoing revenue stream for the customer. We also looked into a life cycle analysis that was previously conducted by a third party called Bright Spot Climate. They found that the life cycle emissions of the unit are fully carbon negative and emits anywhere from 30 to 73% less carbon dioxide than if the building did not have a unit installed. The study also found that the unit reduces the building energy needs by around 20% and decreases the overall net emissions roughly 21 to 27%. The payback period for the study, which was performed in Canada, was calculated to be a 5 to 6 year payback period, which also took into account the energy savings and the rebates from selling the potassium carbonate product. So as I mentioned, we also wanted to look into other opportunities for selling potassium carbonate and uses. There's a pretty big market size, about $500 million for this chemical. Some common end uses are generally soaps, detergents, and cleaning products. The pictures on the right shows some of the Clean02 soaps and shampoo products that they sell on their website, which is made from the captured carbon in the potassium carbonate product. Other end uses include agricultural fertilizers. This product has also been used in food and beverage processing, paper manufacturing, glass production, inks and dyes, water treatment, and fire suppression products. So there's a wide variety of end uses for this chemical. We also wanted to explore if there was any sort of carbon capture credit for installing this technology at either a state level or a federal level. And the answer to those questions when we conducted the study is no. This image here shows the expanded tax credit 45Q for carbon sequestration under the Inflation Reduction Act. And there's an annual minimum that a device or a facility has to meet in order to claim the credit. However, since this unit is quite microscale, they don't meet any of these numbers. And so there's an interesting opportunity here to explore expanding these credits to include smaller scale carbon capture systems. So another portion of this market study was to conduct a survey. So we developed 3 separate survey tools to get input from potential customers, Clean02 executives, and energy efficiency program managers. For the Clean02 survey, we asked questions relating to barriers and opportunities on the CarbonX unit. Surveys also had questions designed to gather input on different market ideas, identify lessons learned from previous installations, and explore any potential opportunities for selling and utilizing the potassium carbonate product that they haven't already been looking into. The next survey was designed to identify energy efficiency programs that could, as a long-term, offer this technology as one of their measure offerings. So the survey consisted of questions really targeting program managers to get a better understanding of their needs and requirements. And finally, the third survey was developed to ask potential customers questions on drivers and barriers as it pertains to installing a CarbonX unit at their facility. We also provided a gift card incentive for the voluntary customer participation in the survey. So moving on to the Clean02 survey results. The company has expressed market opportunities for the CarbonX unit, such as single detached homes, heavy commercial and light industrial applications for industries bigger than just a hotel. Right now, a majority of their installations have been at a hotel or a larger multifamily site. The goal for this company is in the future to eventually move away from being an auxiliary device manufacturer to becoming more of a primary device manufacturing, so making boilers and furnaces with embedded carbon capture technology in them. When asked about lessons learned, they've talked about issues related to moisture buildup in the reaction chamber, and how they've had to solve those issues. So they've grown as a company to handle those challenges. They also hope to move into the direction of offering decarbonization as a service, where the CarbonX unit is offered as an operating expense. So what that means is a unit would be provided at low to zero cost, but there would be an ongoing fee that the customer is charged to maintain the unit operations. And in terms of market opportunities, they're very interested in exploring the agricultural sector more, and they're interested in leveraging the potassium carbonate product to develop fertilizers. They've partnered with a university in Canada to work on developing this as well. So this would be another opportunity for the CarbonX unit. They've also noted textile manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, food preparations as some other opportunities. Moving on to the program manager interviews, we spoke to folks from the SoCalGas multifamily and business programs for energy efficiency rebates to learn more about how feasible it would be for these programs to offer the CarbonX unit as a measure offering. So when determining what type of measure to implement into a program, they evaluate both the cost effectiveness and the incentive level pricing for the program to consider it. So given that the current plan within the GET program is to evaluate the CarbonX unit in a hospitality setting at a hotel here in LA, the multifamily program manager has called for further tests to be conducted at multifamily sites in order to bring this technology into multifamily programs. They also wanted to see a measure package developed so that they could offer this technology at a downstream level. We also asked if any of these energy efficiency programs would be able to claim any type of credit for carbon capture savings associated with the CarbonX unit. And to no surprise, they can only incentivize the energy efficiency side of the technology. So before we dive into the survey responses from the customer side, just wanted to briefly talk about the potential impact that the CarbonX unit would have just within the SoCalGas territory. So we have pre-screened a bunch of customers across different sectors that meet the boiler requirements for a CarbonX unit. And so there's roughly 7,000, I think it's cut off at the bottom, roughly a sum of 7,040 boilers with an annual boiler load of around 103 million therms. And so with the CarbonX unit, the estimated energy savings is roughly 20 million therms. This number is probably plus or minus when you think about the boiler efficiency. And this is assuming that the unit does reduce the building natural gas needs by 20%, as the life cycle analysis and other studies have shown that it can do. So putting all this together, this sort of shows the potential of what a large, wide-scale implementation of such a unit would look like within the SoCalGas territory. If all SoCalGas customers somehow in the future manage to get a CarbonX unit, you're looking at 243 million pounds of carbon dioxide that can be removed or prevented from entering our atmosphere. And so these are some greenhouse gas equivalencies to put that into perspective. So that's roughly the same as 14,000, the CO2 emissions from 14,000 homes a year, or it's roughly equal to carbon that is sequestered by roughly 128,000 acres of US forests in a year. So there's a lot of potential for this type of technology if we are able to scale up. Moving on to the survey responses, we received a total of 53 responses from SoCalGas customers. And these customers, like I mentioned, were all previously screened to meet the boiler requirements for a CarbonX unit at their facility. We had a lot of interest from laundry and dry cleaning facilities, which accounted for a majority of the survey participants, followed by that other non-residential buildings, elementary and high schools, hotels, real estate offices, universities. One response from a homeless shelter and retirement community center. So over the next several slides, I will just go over each question that we asked the customers and what their responses were. Some of these were open-ended questions, and some of them were based on a scaling system. So for question 1, we asked customers, are there any barriers preventing you from installing a CarbonX unit at their facility? 22% said cost, 30% said no barriers. Some stated that the space and size of a unit would be a barrier. The unit's roughly the size of a large refrigerator. Some customers claimed that the return on investment would be a barrier. Some haven't heard of the product, didn't know anyone who used it. So there was just a general lack of awareness among some of the survey responses. And some stated that corporate approval would be a big barrier. Question 2 was, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much of a barrier is the initial investment of the CarbonX unit? Over half of the responses stated that this is a barrier or a significant barrier. Only 11% said this is not a barrier at all. Question 3, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much of a barrier is the uncertainty of the CarbonX unit's performance? 26% said it was a significant barrier. Most of the responses ranked this as a 3 or higher. Question 4, how much of a barrier is dealing with maintenance personnel removing the pearl ash product? So as I mentioned, every 2 to 3 weeks, a contractor will be in charge of feeding the unit the potassium hydroxide and removing the potassium carbonate or pearl ash. And so to this customer said, 25% said this is a significant barrier. Roughly 30% were in the middle, and 19% said this is not a barrier at all. Question 5, on a scale of 1 to 5, how worried are you about your natural gas bill? And most of these customers are moderately to very worried about their natural gas bill. So would be a good idea in the future to target those customers. Question 6, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much of a driver is reducing your natural gas bill? And a majority of the customers agree that this would be a significant driver for them. Question 7, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to participate in an energy efficiency program that could help you lower your gas consumption? And again, here, most customers are pretty likely to do so. Only around 13% would be unlikely. Question 8, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to install a CarbonX unit if there was some kind of financial incentive attached to it? Again, majority of the responses would be very likely to do so. Only about 15% would be unlikely or highly unlikely. Question 9, on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to install a CarbonX unit without any financial incentive? And most customers would be highly unlikely to do so. Question 10 was, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much of a driver is lowering your building's carbon footprint? This was an interesting spread of answers. Most customers are somewhere in the middle, and you have 15% saying it's a significant driver and some saying it's not a significant driver. Question 11, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is the circular economy to your building operations? Similar responses to the previous question. The average response was around a 3. Question 12, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is free preventative maintenance to you? And this is very important for most of the customers that participated in the study. Question 13, do products made with carbon, such as soaps, detergents, and fertilizers, add value to your building or business operations? And majority of the folks said yes. And this is important because Cleano2 has worked with hotels to turn the captured potassium carbonate product back into soaps and detergents that add value to the hotel business operation. So this is important for a little over half of the customers that responded to this survey. We also asked them if they would support decarbonization as a service. 68% said yes. Also wanted to get a feel of their building boiler load and hot water needs. 54% were unsure, but some of them did get back to us with their boiler needs for and indicated that they would be interested in potentially installing a CarbonX unit at their facility. And then again, question 16, do you want to be contacted with more information about how a CarbonX unit can provide energy savings to your facility? A majority of the survey responses said yes. There was a lot of interest from the customers to learn more about the technology. So just to conclude here, the CarbonX unit has the potential to significantly reduce building heating needs while acting as a microscale carbon capture unit on the side. The market study found that there is significant interest at the SoCalGas program level to investigate this technology within the IOU's territory and evaluate its energy savings. Right now, the main barrier is we haven't yet installed one in California. The GET program has very recently been approved to test and evaluate the unit's performance at a hotel here in LA. So stay tuned for more information about that, hopefully next year. Customer responses to this technology have been mostly positive. A significant amount of customers are in the commercial sector. Mostly laundry facilities and schools have taken an interest to this technology. Right now, again, the main barrier on the customer side is that they just haven't really heard about the technology until completing the survey. So getting the word out there and getting customers interested will be a challenge in the future. Got the last two bullet points here. So to wrap up the information from our interviews with Clean02, they have also expressed interest in exploring various opportunities to demonstrate their CarbonX technology across different sectors. However, again, different costs, ROIs, and just unfamiliarities with these units are just some of the market barriers that the company will have to overcome when it comes to engaging with customers here in California. And finally, a series of demonstration projects within the IOU territory that can help verify the energy savings and the emissions reductions will be very essential in determining how the technology can get adopted by these energy efficiency programs. So with that being said, and taking everything into account, we have put together a proposed roadmap with recommendations for how we can implement this at a statewide level. The first recommendation, first task here is that utilities should engage with folks to find feasible sites to demonstrate the CarbonX unit in California, whether it be multifamily, agriculture, laundry facilities, schools, universities, hospitals, offices. That would need to happen first, and then followed by that, a series of demonstration projects to be implemented and completed with significant data showing the customer energy savings. Finally, the utilities would need to engage with engineers to develop a measure package about the CarbonX technology based on the data that is gathered from the demonstration projects in California. You also need to demonstrate the cost effectiveness of this. Following the measure package and inclusion of the CarbonX unit into the California measure portfolio, energy efficiency programs can develop an incentive and rebate structure for customers. And finally, we really just need to focus our efforts on, we recommend focusing efforts on customer outreach and education to get the word out there and help implement this at a statewide level. And that concludes our market study. And like I've mentioned, we have very recently been approved to to launch the Cleano2 field study, which will take place next year at a hotel in Southern California, where we will connect the CarbonX unit to a outdoor pool boiler and test the emissions reductions and efficiency savings. CalNext is the electric ET program. To learn more about their project and what they're working on, feel free to visit their website, calnext.com. Our next GET webinar is the 2024 research plan. This will take place on December 12th from 1 to 2 p.m. and the registration link will be sent. If anyone has any questions on this market study, I am happy to answer that at this time. There's a question from Matt Gregory from SoCal Gas. Kate, can they just mute themselves, or do you have to take them off of mute?
Yeah, let me allow the mic. All right. I think, Matt, you can unmute yourself.
All right. Anushka, thank you so much for the presentation. I've been tracking Cleano2 for a couple of years. I feel like they've done some demos with Northwest Natural, maybe in the Pacific Northwest. I'm just curious if you were tracking any of that work, any other demonstrations, and also if you had a sense for their manufacturing capabilities. I feel like a couple of years ago, one of the concerns was that they were sort of hand building these units and weren't quite ready to deploy them widely because it was, lead times were like a year or something. Any color on that you could share?
Yeah, good question. So from what I know, they can build out a unit, or they get units out roughly, I think it's like 50 units a year. So roughly one a week. That's what they've told me in the past. So they're not yet at a level, because they're doing this by themselves, that they can do, hundreds a year. It's still pretty small scale. I've mainly been familiarized with some of their hotel installations, where they've had the Cleano2 unit installed. So I haven't really been tracking some of the other locations that they're installing it at. But I know there's a lot of interest on their end to work with the ag sector, because they're actively working with a university to develop a fertilizer for their product. So I know that's something that they're currently seeking as well.
Okay.
Hope that answered. Okay.
Anushka, we have a question in the chat if you can see that.
Yes, I see that. Dennis asked, what is the energy consumption of the unit in kilowatt hours per day, and what is the preheat water delta T? I don't have those numbers in front of me right now, Dennis, but if you could email me that question, or let me go to the next slide. I think we have an email on the. Yeah, if you could just send us an email, I can get back to you with that information. Would a customer so Michael asked, would a customer typically be responsible for selling the pearl ash product, or does CarbonX stay responsible for collecting and sharing sales with the customer? That's a good question. So the Cleano2 team is responsible for collecting the product. So they will have a contractor, a local contractor that they will work with And that contractor will be in charge of feeding the potassium hydroxide and collecting the potassium carbonate product once the batch process is over. In terms of sharing sales with customers, so it depends on what the customer wants. If they want to sell it back to CleanOut2 as a rebate, they can do that. If they want to get a product in return, that's also an option. So it really depends on what the customer wants. Hope that answered your question. I don't know if anyone has any other questions, but feel free to get in touch with us for more information on Get Projects. Connect with us on LinkedIn. We'll be posting on there. And yeah, we'll hopefully have an update for you next year with the CarbonX field study.
Thank you, Anushka. Good presentation.
Yes. Thank you, Anushka. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you. Thanks.